Alrighty, on to this episode's writing tip. So it's pretty cool. It was a pretty cool serendipitous way that I came across this writing tip. I started using a service called later.com. Well, Later is similar to Buffer. I use Buffer as well. And Buffer was the first one of these like social media marketing or like posting helping tools where you can pretty much prep posts in advance. So you can schedule, set up a whole bunch of posts for all the different social media sites at the same time. Post to Twitter, post to IG, Facebook, etc. You can set up your post for the week, for the month, whatever. And I use Buffer for that. And then I came across another site that does like the same thing, their version of, called later.com. I've used Buffer for a few years. Later, I just started using. Been using it for a couple of weeks, but I really like their like calendar view where you can like see the posts like on an actual calendar and, set up a post for, Tuesday at 3 p.m. and set up another one for 6 p.m., set up one for Wednesday at 9, etc. And I heard of Later on Podspike. Podspike.com, for those of you that don't know, it's they call themselves like a podcast clinic. They actually featured my show, the Spun Today Podcast, recently in a newsletter of theirs. And what they do is I think it's weekly or maybe monthly, they'll pick a podcast to give like a free consultation on. And give you like 5 different things that you can work on, things that they like, things that you can improve on, etc. And they gave me a great advice that I'll be implementing on the show in terms of tips for growing your audience, places to like promote the podcast, or how to post on, different ways to strategies rather to post on like social media, tips on your logo design, some of which I'll be implementing. So stay tuned for that. Different things to say or focus on during like your call to action, like when I tell you guys in the beginning of this episode to, ways to support the show, etc. Like stuff like that. And they call it a free health check. It's something I submitted for. I think I saw it on the Pod News newsletter, which is an amazing resource. And I'll link to all this stuff in the episode notes, actually, so you guys don't have to remember. Buffer, Later, Podspike, and Pod News. All stuff you guys should check out, especially if you're into podcasting. And anyway, they recently did a health check on me, but before that, they did a health check on a different episode. And what's cool is that you can read the health check for the different episodes, and you can be like, oh shit, I could use that. That's good advice. I could use that to implement on my show, etc. So it doesn't have to be directly on your show. And you could also like pay for them to do like an actual health check for your show if you want to. But I lucked out and submitted for it a few weeks ago, and they decided to pick my show. Anyway. Through one of the health checks that they did for another show, they mentioned like this social media, like posting thing that the person should post more on social media for their show. There's services out there, and that's what I was already, doing for Buffer. But they mentioned this site called Later, and I was like, oh shit, let me check that out. I checked out Later's website. This is a very long-winded way to let you guys know how I serendipitously stumbled upon this episode's writing tip. So all that was to get to here. Very long-winded. Good job. So I started using the site later.com. I go in my browser on a random day that I was gonna like try it and post some stuff, and I typed in Later, and something else popped up. But I clicked enter like out of habit, and it took me to a site called lateralaction.com, and it took me directly to like a post on their website called Mind Mapping. And I started reading it, and I was like, oh shit, this is like writing related. Let me like read this post. And I did, and it was dope. And that is the writing tip that I'm going to share with you guys now. And as always, I will link to it in the episode notes. So mind mapping, and you guys should definitely click on the link in the episode notes to go to the direct post. The post is called Lesson 5, the 4 most powerful types of creative thinking. Number 2 is the mind mapping section. But the reason why I want you guys to go check it out is so you can see the diagram of the mind mapping that they have like a photo of. And aside from reading all the details, when I saw it, it helped like crystallize everything for me and make it all make sense. So if you're a visual person like I am with a lot of things, then it'll definitely be helpful to check out. But yeah, I'm going to read to you guys the excerpt from that section for this episode's writing tip. And it says, quote, when you make notes or draft ideas in conventional linear form, using sentences or bullet points that follow on from each other, in a sequence, it's easy to get stuck because you are trying to do two things at once. One, get the ideas down on paper, and two, arrange them into a logical sequence. And I do that all the time, by the way. I'm a checklist writer person, whether it comes to stories, whether it comes to just like tasks for the day. So that's like my default. That's what like I fall on. And it's true, I never thought of it that way. You're technically trying to do two things at the same time, which is get the ideas down on paper, one, and then arrange them into logical sequence. And a lot of times, like I'll think of a ton of different things at once, and I'll start writing them down, but I'm trying to write them down in the specific order that I thought them, and then I'll forget like the fourth thing that I was thinking about because I was going in that specific order. Anyway, that's just a quick aside. Continuing on, the article says, mind mapping sidesteps this problem by allowing you to write ideas down in an associative organic pattern, starting with a key concept in the center of the page and radiating out in all directions, using lines to connect related ideas. It's easier to, quote, splurge ideas onto the page without having to arrange them all neatly in sequence. And yet, an order or pattern does emerge in the lines connecting related ideas together in clusters. And that's what the image that I'm telling you guys to go check out, which again is linked to in the episode notes, that's what is illustrated in the image like so perfectly. But let me continue on. Because it involves both words and a visual layout, it has been claimed that mind mapping engages both the left and right hemispheres of the brain, leading to a more holistic and imaginative style of thinking. A mind map can also aid learning by showing the relationships between different concepts and making them easier to memorize. I don't know about that left brain, right brain stuff, but if true, then cool, bonus, right? Then the article goes on to say, visual approaches to generating and organizing ideas have been used for centuries, and some pages of Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks are often cited as the inspiration for modern mind maps. Tony Buzan is the leading authority on mind mapping. Among his tips for getting the most out of the technique are 1. Start in the center of the page. 2. The lines should be connected and radiate out from the central concept. 3. Use different colors for different branches of the mind map. And 4. Use images and symbols to bring the concepts to life and make them easier to remember. And then finally, it goes on to link to Tony Buzan's website and says, for more tips on mind mapping, as well as books and software tools, visit Tony Buzan's website. That's pretty dope, right? I'm actually looking forward to planning to try this out during this long weekend to see if it helps me get things going with my second novel, the continuation to FRACTAL, which, as you all know, if you listen to the Spun Today podcast, I've been stuck on for a while. But yeah, definitely check out the post. There's four other sections to that post. This is just the second section, mind mapping. And the title of the post is Lesson 5, The 4 Most Powerful Types of Creative Thinking. And it's from the Lateral Action website, which will be linked to in the episode notes. Check it out.